All right, welcome to today's episode. Today's episode is an interesting one because there's many firsts. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll notice the backdrop is significantly different than where I'm usually recording from. So there's lots of firsts happening today, including visiting Placencia Belize on a very special excursion trip. Number two, I'm interviewing somebody live in person, and that is a first for me. He is the CEO and co-founder of a group and company called Noma-Collective. What they do is they organize digital nomad meetups and trips, anywhere from 7 days to 30 days. The one I'm on is a family edition. It's one of the first that they're trialing. So far, it's been amazing, and we are having so much fun. We went through all the ups and downs of how's it going to go with kids on a plane, to living abroad in a community living environment, separate quarters, but still how does it work? We had so many questions that got answered really carefully through the process before we made the commitment to come. And now that we're here, we're so glad we did. And I really wanted to just spread the message as much as possible. So I thought, let's talk with the CEO, Daniel, the co-founder. While we're here together, why not? What a great location to be recording in. And try to address some typical things that you might be thinking, or just open your eyes to the possibility of traveling, whether with your family or just with other digital nomads. We're all doing events, we're all doing networking things, but this is really just living your life and getting to experience things, again, as an individual with other people in the community or as a family in another community, and taking you outside of the world of, working from home. It can be isolating. It can always be a little bit hard to find new friends and community, and you can sometimes feel lonely. So if you're looking for adventure, meetups, and community, this might be for you. We also have a YouTube documentary we're going to be releasing as a family. It's more of a personal side of things, but make sure to check that out too. You'll get to see the ins and outs of this entire trip, the ups and downs, and just the key things that you should be doing if you come to this location or any digital nomad meetup you might be thinking of. So let's get into today's episode right now. All right, Daniel, welcome to the Part of Props podcast. It's awesome to have you here live in person in Placencia. So welcome.
Thank you very much, man. Pleasure to be here.
This is a first, by the way. We are recording live, first ever live podcast. And I said, what better place to do it than in Belize while we're on this wonderful experience with Daniel, Noma-Collective, and everyone else that's part of this journey with us. So before we get started, what's something interesting about you that not many people know?
Interesting that not many people know. I mean, I play chess with like two people and I love it. And then I only did it with those two people for many years. And then I started playing online. So not many people know about that. My father was a singer in a famous band called Manfred Mann. He sung a song called Blinded by the Light, which is pretty famous. So I don't really talk about it that much, but I'll say those are two random things that were not that.
So why only two players?
Because I never went into like a team or anything or a game. And so I just played with these two friends for like my whole life. And that's what we would do together. And then it's one of those like chess and like music industry don't really go together that well. Like I feel like I'm sometimes like at bits of different like moments and different people. I hate to use the word comedian, but like in the sense of like my general friend group and work group aren't really chess people, is what I mean.
Okay. And love volleyball too.
Volleyball is to the Belize. I'm a big football, soccer fan, and I play a lot. And actually now living half the time in Mexico, I actually got a game together. So I have a friendly that I'm organized with like 40 people that come every week now, and we play a bunch of games, and it's awesome. But in Belize, there's just like not even any like where to play, right? It's one field, which is a complete ankle breaker down in Placencia, which I like to play, but I also don't want to get super injured. And like, it's rugged. It's like this, right? And so when that urge for physical, like sport that I couldn't fulfill, and there's a volleyball court, like 2-minute walk from here, a 50-second walk from here. And they were just like, let's play. And in England, it's not a thing. There's no, it's not a thing. There's no beach. I mean, we're cobblestone beaches, right? Like we're not sand really, and we're not that hot. And so I think my understanding is in Canada and the States it's kind of common. People play volleyball in school, and so they have like a level of this. Yeah. And I had it, and it just like it fulfilled the whole of I was left with not playing football, and then like, it was the only thing we could do really here, and it became a thing when we had the full-time co-live here. We ended up having like full-on competitions with like locals, and it was just a great bonding experience. So, you can come in and out.
Yeah. Have you ever played hockey?
So I play field hockey.
Okay.
I actually broke my nose twice in 2 years, and I never played. Never ice hockey, but like in England, the 3 sports in my school that you would play were hockey, cricket, and rugby. Because the posh schools, I went to posh school for 3 years, and football is like not appropriate. So and when I went to I went to a state school, they call it, but like non-paid when I was younger, and then that was football. And then I went to a private school when I was a bit older, and they don't play football. So yeah, the hockey is like kind of that area.
Yeah, fair enough. Look at
Astros of burns and painful sticks. I see term moved into.
Yeah, I get that. And Canada, that's all we do. That's our pride. So I'm still getting used to the volleyball stuff, but I'm looking forward to it for sure. Now that we have a month here, right?
Yeah.
So I really want to make this episode because I have so many friends in the industry and we do so many networking events, but this was brand new for me. And I think you've been in this for quite a while, and the business is fairly recent, but we'll get into exactly when you started. I really wanted to bring this to the forefront of people that I know that could benefit, not just from a family perspective, but also just individuals that want to travel and be kind of like the nomad experience without just a 3 to 4 day or 5 day networking event. This is really a culture thing. So it's exciting, and I just came across this year. So it's still new to me, but for you, it's like, we do this all the time, right? So informal or formal bio, give us a bit of your background. What have you done in the past? This obviously wasn't where you started. You didn't go to school for this.
No.
What are like some of the highlights? Usually I read off like Daniel's the CEO, co-founder of, but I will have that bio and I couldn't really dig it up on. So let's think David Daniel.
It's all thinking, but yeah, and it's a winding path that seems slightly straighter when you look backwards, but in the moment it felt like it was one thing to the next. And so I think the line across everything I've ever done is creating community. And it started in music events. I would, as I said at the start, my family's all musicians, or at least in the music industry. My mom runs a PR company for music in the UK. And so from very early on, I was always with people. I was always in the studio. I was traveling. And I'm talking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? I was on tour with my dad for a lot of time. And so unbeknownst to me, being in those sections definitely allowed me to be kind of a little bit more relaxed in communication, right? And what you need in community is that communication. And so then when I got a bit older and I actually went to community college at 16 in America, right? Then I decided, my dad was living in the States. I went to community college for 3 years. And I was going to transfer to San Diego State at 18 or 19. So I'd done the community college, the associate arts degree. And I went back to England for a summer. I done one call to extra, and so I had a gap between when the next year started. And so I was like, I'm going to go and intern for my mom's company. And then I went back. And that was my route into music. And I started doing events, and in those events it would just be one night. We would create a safe space, you put some music on, everyone would come, they'd forget the work week or whatever it is, and you started that community in that respect. And then we started to do weekends away, and then we started to do week-long festivals. And then I kind of sat in the festival scene for quite some time. In the summers, when I decided to move away from England, I moved to South America, and I would come back to do project work in summers because festivals very seasonal. And then in Argentina, I started doing stuff that was more experiential based. So I would do secret events that were specifically themed, or, I would do birthday parties. I remember doing the David Bowie birthday party for a friend, or doing we would do a secret disco funk and soul parties where we would build giant cuddle puddles with all of these mattresses, and we would create these moments where people were really comfortable, right? And then I got this opportunity to do this members club, which was an arts members club. It was kind of like a Soho House, if we know about Soho House. It was a co-work plus an events place plus a restaurant, and you would have a membership, and you could come and you would get first dibs on the events that would happen there. You'd bring friends and stuff. It was really cool. And when that fell through, it actually it failed spectacularly in the best fashion possibly. We had licensing that wasn't right. We ended up getting closed. The owner came back, turned out to be someone who he wasn't. You know, it was really great. Like, it's almost like a Netflix series, like, spectacular fail. It was great. But I learned a lot. You always learn all from those failures.
Yeah.
And then I took a step back and I was like, I want to do something that isn't so focused around the nightlife, because I was getting a bit jaded. There's this like need to be on at night all the time. And like I couldn't envisage myself at like 60. I could have been in this up at like 6 in the morning, like counting money or finishing an event or whatever. It just didn't seem like there was a trajectory there that made sense.
That makes sense.
Sounds logical, right? And there's also, you see those old people who are still doing it, and they're like, I don't want to do one of those people. Yeah, exactly. And so my friend had gone to a Airbnb style hotel where the owner spent a lot of time with everyone who stayed there. And he would cook dinner every time, and there was a big communal table that everyone had to, that was like the rule of the being, and I was like, had to eat with him. And he would sit there and he'd tell you stories, and my friend went and he came back and he was just gassed up. He was like, man, this is the future. Community like hotels. This is what we need to be doing. It's the same community aspect. Let's like 6 in the morning, more like, moving into a different category. But as often with things, you don't make the jump till you need to. So this is this idea. It was there. I was comfortable. I can go and work at the festival. And slowly we started to find this potential. And I found a bit of investment. I found a location. And I moved out to Belize. 2 months later, COVID hit. And so I was left completely kind of with nothing planned. Everything I'd ever done was like deemed non-essential on March 17th, 2020, right? And so it was like I was in the place we're in right now, which is in Maya. It was closed. The whole place was closed. And I was like basically looking after it to make sure no squatters came. It was me and the guy who built it. And we were here. And it was like this moment where we were literally just waiting out COVID. And I saw the whole remote work thing, which I'd done a lot before. And it made sense. I was like, this is interesting. When we had our hotel project, were thinking about something a bit more generalistic. It was like also backpackers. It was partly digital nomad. It was just generally like the way I used to explain it was like a high-end hostel. Like our generation did the backpack and they loved the community. They loved the experience. They don't want the bunk bed at all. They want a nice bed. And it's like you go to the nice hotel and you've got none of the vibe. You've got this cold lobby. You've got this like random bar with like a pilot and some old dude. There was this big disparity. And now there's a lot of hotels that are fulfilling that role. My friend calls me up one day and said, I'm looking for a location to do a pop-up co-live. And this was like November 2020. And within 3 weeks, we'd rolled out this beta program of, it was called Umaya Village. The hotel's called Umaya. We figured the village was a bit more of like a longer term stay aspect. And we were like, let's just roll the dice. We put some money behind advertisement and we said that we're going to be a remote working co-live in Belize. And within a week and a half, we sold out like 2 months. And we were like, oh, okay, this is real. And that's how I got to where I am, essentially. I mean, there's a little bit more of a Noma story, but that's the story.
What a blessing in disguise, though, because I'm thinking of this in terms of like everything had operational failure when COVID hit in a way. And it's like, we're done. What are we going to do? And all of a sudden, I think it introduced a new style of living to people that needed it. And you guys probably experienced Nova well when it came to travel. Maybe like, I don't know how it worked here, but in Canada, we couldn't leave the country. But now, especially everyone's primed to want to travel. And so many people went online, and whether they recognize themselves as digital nomads or not, if you're working from home now, it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to travel, and people haven't really opened their eyes to it yet. So I think there's a bit of a spectrum of people. For us, like I've been working online since 2007, but the idea of co-living was never in my mind. Yeah, it was just like, well, that's absurd. I don't know, we're going to do community living, and like, what does that look like? So for us, now we have a family, it was even more like that's completely outside of what we can do. Yes. But we've been here, we've got to meet your lovely wife, your beautiful boy, Luci, and your mom, Sarah. And you guys have been amazing to meet, as well as the other families. And this was, for us, it was a bit of an experiment. We're like, I want to travel.
Yeah.
We have 2 young kids now. I'm like, can I still travel? I can.
Yeah.
My family can.
Yeah.
It's like,
we travel.
Yeah, it's like, how does that work? And there's a lot of firsts. There was, how do the kids on the plane? How do the kids in the community living for the first time, juggling, care and getting groceries, all these like firsts. And we're just, the main thing that my wife and I decided was like, everything we did, we was going to be curiosity based. So we're going to be in an adventure mode. Something bad happens, oh, that's interesting. Like, something great happens, wow, that's really cool. Like, but treated with curiosity based. And what we wanted from this event, which we're already getting, is just the cultural aspect. The sense for our kids to have something more than I had. I didn't travel until I was like 25, and then cell-phone till I was 26.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I went from being in a like big fish, small pond to, wow, I'm humbled. I'm a nobody in this grand scheme of things, which is great. It humbled me, right? Yes. So I'm excited because I think there's a lot more opportunity for people to actually experience this with families. And I know Noma focuses on digital nomads for like singles, couples, but also families now too. So what's been the evolution of like going into family? Is it just been a personal shift for you, or is that something you saw coming through the trends as well?
It was. When you look at like my journey, of course, I wasn't thinking about kids until I had a kid, right? And then suddenly I looked around and go, there's no infrastructure here. And I think just to like go back a little bit, like I believe the reason why, like, you look to coders and go, all that stuff for me is because it was very much this, like, it was very leaning on like a hippie or like a backpacker thing. And so there was never this infrastructure because the only people that were doing that were people who didn't have full-time jobs. Like, you remember the conversation when it was like, do I leave my job and go traveling, or do I keep my job, right? And that was the decision that most people had when they didn't finish university or when they didn't go to university, and they had this decision. And I remember being told, well, you can't have a gap in your CV, like, oh, that's like, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And like that was a very real conundrum that like you had to be the more ambitious person to even jump on that. And now I think what the reality is you've done that decision that it's not like mutually exclusive. You can keep your job and you can travel, and the infrastructure is just catching up. So like in terms of the family thing, when I looked at the business, it was like, in any business I've ever done, you really worry about your clientele aging out of the product, right? Like, and I saw that I myself was aging out in my own product unless I delivered something new, right? And I kind of, again, the same thing, and this is what I do in my life, is you just got to roll the dice. You've got to try it out. And so really with the Noma family thing, it was like, it seems like a good idea. I'm sure there's loads of families that want to travel. The idea is simple. It's like you've got co-working and co-living and like I just remote work travel, and you've got summer camp. The two ideas are not really like new, but like you're putting them together and just that little twitch, like that little change, clearly connected with a lot of people. I mean, every conversation, including I think the conversation I had with you when I was selling you on this trip, was like, oh man, like I've been looking for something like this for ages and I never found it, and then I came across you. And so I think it was partly, I think that the spark was me becoming a father, but the entrepreneurial part of my brain was like, hold on, like, every 80% of my entire clientele are going to age out of my product unless I offer this family option space.
That's so smart. I never really thought of it that way, but yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
By the way, this is brought to you by Hobbs Brewery. 100%.
Only IPA, the best IPA and only IPA in Belize.
I was so happy to find but he told me, I was like, okay, great. Usually it's, just whatever's in the country, that one.
Yeah, but that one longer.
Yeah. Which I'm fine with, but this was a welcome.
They're two worlds apart. Like I like, just on a side note, like when COVID hit, like they obviously brewed a bunch of beer and then like it shut down. And so at one point they were giving the cases away. I was like a number one customer. I stocked up for months, but yeah, shout out to Hobbs Brewery. We keep us all in check.
Yeah, especially on hot days. Now, it is hot. I'm Canadian. Apparently the bugs are having a feast on me for the first week, but I found some really cool spots. It's been an amazing community of people here in me. People are all like first-name basis now. Yeah. Very safe spot. So you guys, what I really like is that you've done your homework on things, and I feel safe and like structured when I come down here.
Yeah.
So with like yourself, I don't know. I mean, for me, I don't care as much about me as I do about my family. Cool. So there's always that like, what if, what's going to happen? And what I really love so far about the family chapters, the day camp, they get to actually go and do stuff, and parents get a bit of a break during the day to actually keep working. So let's get into some questions because I really wanted to dissect this a bit deeper. I was thinking about this, like, what's the difference between this versus like a networking event? So I used to go to a lot. This is my first time communal living, which again, loving it so far, but I wish I would have been turned on to it 5 years ago. Even just when I was a couple or single or whatever. When you go to a networking event, you don't just talk business. It is like personal too, but it's not the same vibe. Yeah. You're there with like a purpose and intent, and it's short-lived. So what do you think is the differentiating factor besides the kind versus 5 versus 30 days? What else do people get out of this by the extended experience?
I mean, relationships take time to form, number one, for sure. Like, I think like you totally have, you meet everyone's representative week 1. By week 2, you get like the actual person. And I think that like the time needed to build those relationships is really important. I think that the purpose of coming here by definition is different to the purpose of a networking event. You come with this networking head on. I've actually not had much experience in a networking space because in music it's not as big of a thing. But I've been to obviously conferences. We would definitely do that type of stuff. And I think like when we would do music conferences, it's like you're going to check out bands basically. You're going there to see as many bands as possible, meet a couple of the industry leaders. It's not really as much to do with life. It's definitely to do with work. And I think what we're trying to do here is this balance, this work-life balance, or even better, this merging of the two, by where they were so separate since essentially we decided to go into the factories however long ago. They've been very separate, life and work. And I think remote work is allowing us to kind of merge those things in the sense of like, if you want to take a break from your calls, you can pop over here to the nap room and see your kid, and he's just around the corner, and you can have those ad hoc experiences with your kid. You're not shipping them off somewhere and you see that in 3 weeks. So I think like anything, the intention is super important. So I think that's where the difference is for me.
That makes sense. And is it, and actually I should have done research on this, but is it always 30 days? Is there extended stays? I know we were talking, I don't know if it was your company or you had to mention other associated companies that were doing like chapters of living where it's like a 3-month quarterly. Yeah. Maybe that's the evolution. Yeah. But right now, walk us through what would it look like? Somebody wants to sign up as either a solo entrepreneur, a couple, or a family. What do you guys have offering? What's the stay look like? And what are things that you guys are organizing that people don't have to worry about? Yeah, that's the beauty of this. That's what I love.
Totally. So I think it's worth pointing out like the two problems that Noma solves, right? Like number one is that like as a working professional, it can be, it's quite time consuming to like book and organize a trip. Like, you don't know the locals, you need to kind of do a bunch of research. And aside from that, it can be quite daunting. So there's like the travel aspect, right? New location. I often look at like, being late for work is pretty much the same as not knowing if you've got good Wi-Fi, right? It's, you're not turning out to the meeting, it's the same principle, right? And so we offer that turnkey solution of like, you know that you're going to get your job done, you're going to have a local connect, you're going to have all the things you need, and it's going to be there ready for when you get there. And what's serious is that like it could be quite lonely, it could be quite solitary, like the remote work life. Those ad hoc moments you got around the water cooler or in the office or whatever, they gave you some kind of like a community aspect. And I'm not saying they need to go back to the office for those. I'm saying there's another thing. And so like I think that plug and play community of like-minded people is kind of a second solution that we bring to the table. So with those in mind, like those are the things we definitely offer. We offer the bug resolution. We offer the different excursions. Like in 3 weeks, which is our standard time frame, you get a really nice snapshot of that country. Be it Buenos Aires, doing meat and wine, and you're doing like culture, museums, nightlife, or you're doing Belize, doing snorkeling, scuba diving, mine ruins. Like we've kind of figured out one of the top things to do. So as a single traveler, you generally have options between 2 weeks and 4 weeks. 3 weeks is what we believe is the sweet spot. That's like leaves you wanting more, which is kind of what we're trying to do. But we also have people that travel with us. So they'll just go from trip to trip to trip. And we actually we reward those people. So like if you've done 2 or 3 trips in a row, we'll definitely, make sure that you get a really good deal on those. And actually we do multi-trip buys and things like that. And so we try and structure the beginning and end day so that in theory you could travel with us all year round. Going like from where we are now to where I want to be, I imagine like a Nova passport, by where you could essentially, we could become your landlord and you could just pay us a flat fee of, let's say, $3,000 a month, and you could travel around the world and then you've got that like even level of experience and quality. Having said that, like, you know, we are looking at different size trips. So I actually saw yesterday on LinkedIn a kind of like a survey of it's about 1,000 people. What's your ideal trip length? And it was 4 options. It was like 2 weeks all the way through to like 6 months. And it was literally equal all of them. I.e., there is someone who wants 2 weeks and enough for the same set of amount of people that want all of them all the way to 6 months. That thing will do 6 months, but what we will do is up to maybe 6 to 8 weeks. And we used to do that in the past with our rolling date format. And it's worth mentioning, like, everything's fixed date format. So the reason for that is everyone arrives on the same day and you get this real good sense of community. Everyone bonds at that moment and spend it together and then they leave at the same time. What we used to find is, and this happens a lot in coders, and I've gone and stayed there, if you're on your last 3 days of your trip, you're done socializing, you can't make new friends, you're like, I can't do it anymore, I've got my crew. And so, but like, that's great for you. If someone's just come in, they're on their own, they're wanting that community experience, sure, and they're like, oh, well, dude, like, you know, they feel left out. And so by keeping those fixed dates, and you know, we've had people that arrive a couple of days late, a couple of days early, we're flexible in that respect, but generally the start date being the same for the group that's coming, we've seen better community experiences from that. Give you an example of a trip that might be a bit longer. I want to do a RV trip across America where we have a convoy of nomads that will do that trip. Now that takes a little bit of time. So that's something I'm thinking more 6 weeks. But again, you have your autonomy, you have your vehicle, we'll put locations where you stop for co-working. And so I'm starting to think about, okay, we've got this cool product. How can we add experiences overlaid into that, be it health, be it fitness, be it wellness, be it education, be it professional, growth, be it traveling across America? I mean, like, as a European, like, the dream is that, like, right, I've dreamed about doing the RV trip across America, and I'm not the only person who's had that dream, right? So yeah, there is definitely room for longer stays. But we found a sweet spot to be 3 weeks.
Interesting. Yeah, and I think that'll change as people start to experience this for themselves. Or where, like, typical vacation, 2 weeks, it's like, yeah, that's quite a bit, you know, that's a long vacation. But it's not the same as a vacation, I would say. It is, it's the integration of living and business. One of my missions in life is just not to have a separation of business versus personal. I want the merger. I want the harmonization of my family's part of my business part of my family, we're all one. What I really enjoyed, by the way, for your trip around America, count us in, but I would also make one request. I want a motorcycle nomad trip. I would a motorcycle through Sedona, Arizona. I always picture that'd be a great spot to start. But what I really don't want to do is, like, we were thinking about getting married in Mexico this past year. And I was like, okay. So we were trying to pick a resort. And if I've never been to a resort, you're like a little bit weary. You're like, do I like this place? Is it going to have good Wi-Fi? Is the food good? I don't want to have to go and try these resorts. So what I was looking for was like, hey, somebody is going to vouch for this. Mm-hmm. And you're here, so if anything was wrong, you just go straight to you.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's why we have those community about it. Yeah.
But seriously, it's that aspect that I don't want to think about. Like, I still, plan my flights, things like that. But I want to just know, has somebody been there? Do they like it? Are they willing to put their name on the line for this place? Okay, cool. That solves that X factor for me.
Yeah.
Everything else I can kind of deal with. And part of the structure of the family thing, I don't know about the other side, is that during the day, yes, you get to work, but like this week, work or business, I don't consider myself like a 9-to-5 guy. Mm-hmm. I provide value, and if I don't, I'm not going to stick around that company or that consulting gig. You're free to do whatever you want. Yeah. There's not you have to participate, although it's encouraged, and everyone's here to want it. Get integrated.
For sure.
Learn about each other.
Yeah.
So we've had suppers, we've had excursions planned now. We're going to go on them or we're not. And everyone's up to their own devices if they want to participate now, which is nice because if you've had enough one day, it's not like, well, you're cut from the team if you don't show up to this thing tonight, right? So, and everyone's super forgiving. And again, it's first week, maybe week 3, week 4, it'll be a completely different story. There's going to pull their hair up. But so far, it's like some days there's kids running around and like my kids, off the wall and shame, but everyone's got that like rings together.
Yeah.
And it's so nice because it's not always even the case around people that you love the most. Like I love my family and I love my friends, but whenever you're not kind of putting yourself on the line, you're not making that extra effort to it. So I found it, I guess, very, very supportive so far with everything that we've experienced. So let's talk about how do you, two questions. How do you select participants? Because this is a crucial part of your business. You don't want to attend families who don't get along. So you do a vetting process.
Yes.
How do you go about that?
We didn't for the first 3 weeks when we did this, and it was like the clearest decision. It was the easiest decision we'd ever made, because we've all been somewhere where there's a bad apple, and it's not necessarily they're a bad person. They're just not right out for the trip. Like often it's not even that they're a negative. It's just that it's just not the right trip for them. And so, I mean, initially it was just like get on the phone with them, but now we implement all different types of kind of like, I don't say I'm going to do a Myers-Briggs test with you, but I'm asking you questions that give me answers to allow me to understand. Now, there's obviously faults. It's not a perfect system. I would love to be able to, and I think this is what we're going to do long term, but have kind of a bit more of a drawn out process by where there's maybe 2 or 3 calls. But again, we're a small business, so we have to kind of make a decision on when we're going to make a sale. But generally what we do is, there are some key elements to whether or not you're going to fit in a community like this. And one of them is how much travel have you done before? How many community events have you been to before? And when I say community events, I mean a music festival or camp or something like that. And then you start to ask kind of questions around how would you deal with a situation that makes you uncomfortable, or a situation like a power outage or any of those things? And you start to really see kind of the type of person that you have. And then sometimes people will maybe, put their, as I said before, their representative there. But what you've done is you've got a recording of a call and a bunch of answers, so that if you ever didn't have a problem with that person, you go, hey, well, it was pretty clear we spoke about this before, right? Yeah, exactly. But I think that the passion and the love and the friendliness and the genuine want to help people in this journey connects with certain people. And so we've had to kick off 3 people in 2 years out of almost 1,000 people. So we've got a pretty good ratio.
Refund rate?
Yeah, exactly. And so in that respect, I think that it's a lot about just picking up those natural cues and just talking to someone. You can tell when you speak to someone what type of person they are, at least partially.
Yeah, well, you can. I'm one of your superpowers. You're the front of house guy right now, but you're also the co-founder, and so you're doing a lot. You're wearing a lot of hats, like every entrepreneur's company startup does, which is good because you need to solve the problems first off, and then kind of implement the operations for your team to kind of do the same thing. And I hire a lot of people, and the hiring process that we implement with some of the companies, it's a gauntlet, and it's 3 or 4 interviews, and it's a 2 to 3 process because there's nothing more expensive like a bad hire. And also I'm someone that tricky would either kick off or get a bad rep from.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and I think that mentality is key on that. So that's how you pick people. Now, how do people know if they're right? And by the way, people lie on interviews, right? People lie. I'll be fine when the internet goes out. Don't worry about here. Then it's they're the ones knocking on the door. Hey, 40 megabits. Yeah, for sure. How do people know if they're right for this beyond the glitz and the glamour of it's going to be great, What would be the differentiating factor? You're no, listen, you're probably not right, which is fair enough.
It happens all the time. And the sales team are really good at kind of, seeking people out, because it's so good at it. And people live on the beach, and they're oh, okay, cool. So how do you deal with bugs? Or what would you do if you had a gecko in your world? Or hey, do you need a coffee shop really close where you can have your flat white, for example? And then they're oh, well, I need my flat white. No, I can't have geckos. And we go, well, probably Buenos Aires might be better. Maybe you don't want a beach, actually. And then you kind of guide them through that. And that's what happens a lot. People will think they want something. And actually, it's the salesperson's job to go ask the questions to get to the root. Because actually, what they want is generally just a community. They want to go somewhere and feel involved, and it's not as much the physical location. It really isn't. Although that is a factor, there are big macro, decisions like beach or jungle or city or town or village, massively populated or scarcely populated. But outside of that, it's generally we'll ask a couple questions from their decision and see if it is the right decision, and then just kind of. And generally, when you say to them, "Oh, actually, I think Buenos Aires will be better for you," they're generally pretty open to that.
So how many locations you guys had?
Good question. I probably should know. I think it's about 12.
12.
Yeah. Mostly Central South America, and then we're doing Barcelona for the first time. In fact, actually, I just got totally one spot left. So, but yeah, we're going to our first European destination. That we do Kenya, we do Bali. Those are the only ones outside of Central and South. We're pretty much in almost all of the. We do like Panama, Guatemala. We're doing Costa Rica for the first time, and obviously Belize. So I would like to do Honduras and Nicaragua. I actually we're doing Nicaragua in a month's time. Actually, we have an alumni trip. We're doing our first collab with Outside, which is a really cool co-live company, and they have it's an amazing mansion with like an infinity pool, like overlooking like a hill down into a beach. It's breathtaking. So.
Is it all individual units? Because right now we're like in condos, we're all separated. So you have your own space, you're not like all stuffed in a room and you're using the same bathroom. Like maybe a hostel. I've never actually been in a hostel, so I can't say for sure. But
yeah. So it's definitely like our kind of line is you never share a bedroom, never. When we have like the traditional additions that we do in these condos, and we have two options. You either take the condo yourself, or you share the condo with someone. So we're in a 2-bed condo right now, and you would potentially have a roommate to be. So you would share the common space and have your own bathroom and your own bedroom. And it's just a way for us to bring the price down, have a more economic option. In the locations for me, like one of the biggest differentiators between us and competitors is I believe everyone needs to be in the same location. Like, I'm not saying the same bedroom, just the same location, walking distance, right? I mean, most of our competitors will do like an Airbnb here and an Airbnb there, and it just breaks up the community. You're not spending time with 4 people in your Airbnb. You don't get that wider. Right. You don't get those moments where you're like, oh, hey, you're passing on the pathway, and then you're talking, ad hoc kind of like community moment. That's really my only prerequisite. We definitely started doing stuff more in like now that they're a bit bigger, we're doing more partnerships with already established co-lives. The reality 2 years ago, there wasn't that many established co-lives. Like I don't think that the infrastructure was around really when we started. There were a couple, obviously. I mean, I'm not saying we were the first, but boutique hotels is another thing that we offer. So like in Panama, we have a 14-room eco hotel. We have your own eco dome, which has a desk inside of it and a bathroom, but then they have a community kitchen. And that generally would work for families. I wouldn't take very happily there, but it worked great for single and couple who are nomads. So yeah, the real only kind of one hard line I had is that everyone needs to be in the same place, or like 2-minute walk on distance.
I'm a bit envious of the fact that you consider these sales calls, because like I told you, I was like, dude, you already made yourself any watch what a person finds out about this. Like I would never inquire if I wasn't already kind of sold on it. Of course, there's things you have to like do due diligence on. Yeah. But I was working with a girl, and she was on a trip to Colombia with a similar company, I think. It wasn't necessarily yours. I was like, what is this? I was just like really blown away. But when I want to go back to like the networking events, and one of the things that I think is a powerful differentiator is the fact that there's no pressure on building deals and making business decisions on this trip. Mm-hmm. We're up to go to a networking event. I'm looking, okay, who's the ROI partner I'm looking for? Like, and you're kind of being identified the same way. And of course, there's synergies that could happen, and I'd be interested to see like how many deals I've struck on the sake of trips, because I can just assume there are. But it's also just like, I'm just being me. I don't have to be a business guy, not pretend, but like, kind of, and what I'm listening about, and it's like, yeah, you're the business networking guy, but this is me, and if you talk business, cool. And everyone's very, they're very like vulnerable and kind of like raw in terms of what they're willing to share, as opposed to when everyone's got their guard up. So I'm a natural introvert, and it's been like my life's mission now that I started to travel to be like, hey, it takes effort for me, but I want to practice this. Yeah. And it's such a safe environment in terms of support and people being like willing to want to have conversations, even if you're not a conversation starter. Mm-hmm. So I think even if you're an extrovert or an introvert, there is a room for you in these types of meetups. What about the family stuff? Like you guys, this is your first kind of attempt at this. So far, so good. So are you guys like going all full in on this in the future, or what are your plans to kind of evolve that?
So definitely very interested in the progression of the family side of things. I kind of have a larger vision of, these physical communities that are dotted around the world. And so when you have a community that's stationary or it's partly stationary, there is going to be families that live there. If there's families that live there, there's going to need to be a school, probably need to be a couple of shops. And so this is my way of dipping my toes into a industry that I am learning as I go, because the other companies that are in this space, and there's really few of them, they've gone with like full education. And so I think there is a movement towards that, but like, I don't want to jump into it. Like, I'm very hesitant of like, that's not my industry. I know how to create a community. And so for me, it makes sense to trial this out in a slow process by where we see, like, for example, next summer, we're probably going to do 3 of these back to back. And we're going to do them, in the summer. And then from that, we'll look at, well, okay, what location has the most people? And perhaps we'll look at maybe doing like 2 or 3 semesters the year, like after that. But the infrastructure needed for that is obviously massive. We're going to need to have teachers, school, full time. There's a whole different ballgame there. So I think the short answer is yes. And then I think we need to figure out how that goes. I think, the summer camp element is slightly easier to put together in terms of logistics.
That makes sense. I think that there's going to be a need for it, though. So I think you're starting on the right path. And it's going to lead to more developments, understanding. And maybe it's not for you, maybe it is for you guys, but I really hope that it is, because I want to see the opportunity to travel. Like I said, we made a vision for ourselves, and that includes the traveling component. But then when you involve kids, it's like, well, how do they keep up the curriculums?
Yeah.
Or how do they get the summer camp experience while we travel?
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's secluded. I want them, like, cool. My little guy, Leo, he's basically me before I got trained in how to deal with people right now. So I'm seeing everything like that. It's kind of like the way I was versus the way I am now. So I want him to experience that cultural shift early on in life, so it is not the battle with it for later on too. Now, something else I want to kind of come back to or revisit, you and I talked about this. I think there's a big opportunity, and I don't know if you guys have the infrastructure set up for it right now, but for B2B or corporations looking to create culture and create a safe environment for people to meet up beyond just Zoom calls. Mm-hmm. Like, we have an international company. I've only ever met up with the founders, the president, and we've had, like, we call it the Wolf Pack of like 6 guys just started in 2015. Yeah. I've yet to meet people in like Lithuania, in Brazil, all these different locations. So I see an opportunity for you guys, and you've probably already seen it, in terms of, could you create this community living for businesses that are looking to build that growth and that bonding between teams and companies?
100%. We actually just launched our team retreats page like about 3 weeks ago with the full-on vision of going out to companies that are remote and offering them an opportunity to meet in a physical space. It's just team bonding, or if it's for rewards and for sales teams and that type of stuff. But I see it being a massive value add. And actually, I kind of want to go full circle, because you touched on something which is like, it doesn't feel like a networking event, but most likely there is networking happening. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the key, because if you can get people feeling comfortable, relationships are made more naturally. People have their guard down, but you ultimately get to the end goal. What does someone want when they go to a networking event? They want to meet someone who could potentially help them in their career, or help people in their career, and also build their business or whatever they're working on. And so one of the things that we've seen, even within the traditional communities, is ad hoc businesses are made, investments are made. I've seen it happen. I've seen like multiple businesses being born in front of me and are now, coming to fruition. I've seen people invest in different companies. We've had, in this round that we're doing right now, we've had 10 alumni that have invested in Noma, right? Which is like, again, it's such a beautiful experience. So how do we capitalize on that, but also at the same time, not turn it into a networking event, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I was looking at is, having growth professionals and or like incubator representatives on site to help you facilitate your goals, should that be what you want. And I think it all goes back to this thing, which is, it's a highly curated but optional calendar.
Sure.
You don't have to do any of it, but if you want to, there's all this infrastructure there for you, right? And I think it's the same, to go full circle onto, your retreats, question. It's like, obviously we know that interpersonal physical communication is so important. We know that when you get in a room with a bunch of people and you hash it out, a lot happens. It doesn't have to work that way, but we know that. And so I think like, if nothing else, as a once a year meet for a company in a team bonding sort of like, process, we can offer all the infrastructure to make that happen. And aside from that, it's like, I know these companies don't want to deal with that. They don't want to deal with it. They want someone to be able to just deliver it and be like, here you go. So yeah, I'm really excited about that, because we're going to start to take some long-term leases on some places, because we're going to start to want to make our own locations ours, so we have 100% control on those places, which starts to make it really interesting to try new things, or have opportunities to offer companies good rates to come and enjoy our spaces.
Man, I'm so glad you said that, because like I'm thinking of this as when you're looking at, like, again, hiring teams is probably one of the most brutal experiences the past 4 years of just trying to find good talent.
Yep.
So there's a couple of things you touched on. I'll circle back to. One, it's great to put on like, hey, if you join this company, we do Noma-Collective trips.
Yep.
It's like, wow, what is that? And instantly you're offering something really, and then it's a fresh perspective on like, wow, they do this. That means like they have a culture of this and this and that. So it associates to something that you maybe can't offer yourself. And logistically, I don't want to be organizing any of this stuff with anybody like HR or anybody. No, we're fully job running, right? Yeah, it's a full job. That's why finding somebody like yeah. So there's a lot of things that you mentioned, and now I'm blanking on the other one. But to get back to my questions, which is why I keep them here, because I'm just not on spot type of guy. I want to definitely take you up on the business side of things. We're going to talk about that. I think it's a very cool experience that everyone would benefit from, and people would gravitate towards and want to travel, especially with the family side now. For the longest time, we were like, a company that I'm part of, consulting with majority of the time, it's like there was 6 guys. There's not even couples at the time. It was just like, and then it started to have families. And this family culture is like, how do you shift this work? Like we were kind of like, million workhorses at the time. We put in a lot of hours to try to make, what we need to. Yeah, exactly. And now it's like, we're with families. I'm like, I want to have more time with my family. How do I integrate this? So I think that's a great, way to kind of lead into that with companies. Let's talk about the takeaways. I want to just hear from your perspective. I have an opinion of, actually I want to come back to it, and then I'll get back to that. Okay, so when I first got here, first thing I'm doing is like analyzing everybody, because I'm in my networking head, right? I'm like, okay, what is this person, and it sounds like, I'm just going to share it transparently, it's like, what does this person have to offer in terms of like, what kind of business deals they may do this? And instantly I'm like, okay, what are you doing? I like, get out of that mindset, right? So it's like, it's a shift, like you got to get used to that. And then I'm more interested in their kids and like all that stuff. So there is business components to it. And I like the idea of the mastermind, consulting, bringing in a professional to kind of whatever. It'd be cool to cater to the people in terms of like, who are you bringing into this group? And if you can start to categorize them a little bit as like what their businesses are, how they could benefit from this one speaker, and informal. If they don't want to participate, they don't have to. There's no like, selling them on stuff throughout the event or whatever, which is again, another fresh perspective. Usually when I go to events, it's like, hey, what's the bigger play here? And I kind of talk to you about that and stuff for the first night. Yeah. Like what's bigger here? Because it doesn't seem like there's enough profits for this to only be the thing you guys are doing. Yes. What's your dream partnership look like? What do you like? Just if you had, magic wand, you wanted to get a dream partner tomorrow to sign with this company or any company you're part of, who are you looking for and what would they bring?
So I think there's probably kind of 2 sides to that. Like, I think that there is a brand partnership opportunity by where we can add value and offer like connection to their ideal customer. Our customer is quite specific. Like if you were trying to get into the nomad space, like we have that. So I would love to be able to offer complete remote work set times as an add-on. I'd love to be able to offer kind of like, like any sort of material in terms of packing or anything like that, so they're able to kind of help the nomad in their daily life. I got past this, it's still in, they're still making the product, but there was like, it's basically like a really high functioning, really small computer that you could carry around and that you could then just connect to a screen. It's like how they used to have those Apple boxes that were like, it's like DC, that's all you need to travelers to know about. And I was like, well, that seems really interesting. So we have those sort of partners by where we can kind of really test those things. That's really interesting. But my biggest passion here is I think 90% of the people that can do this don't know about it. And so like, all I want is to have more people experience this life-changing event. Like I see time and time again, people on the beach, week 2, rethinking their entire lives. Like I thought this was just going to be a week or 2 away and I'm going to go back to my normal life. And then they realize, because as you said, it's perspective. You get his perspective and you go, oh, well, sure, I can go backwards. You know, I need to go forwards. I need to make this jump. So my ideal partnerships is access to communities that could potentially have, you know, gain value from this and have this change. Like that's what gets me up in the morning. Those people that are like, Daniel, because of Nova, like my whole life has changed for the better. Got more time for myself, more time for my family, you know, more time doing my job, more productive. Like I was lucky enough to be given that from the beginning. I traveled my entire life as a kid. And so I think unbeknownst to me, I was given all of this, like, you know, nurturing to be able to make these decisions by myself and be 23 and be like, you know what, I'm going to give away my day job. I don't care. I'll go to Argentina with $2,000 in my back pocket and learn Spanish because I don't care. I'll always turn back. And I think that's fear that most people have. That fear of like, well, what if? It's like, that doesn't need to be the roadblock anymore. So like partnerships about it for me, and like helping people break down those fear barriers.
Those are good partnerships. That makes sense. Personal question too. I have a stepson. He's going to be 19, or he already is 19. And he's at that transitional stage. He's like, I don't know what I want to do. I want to go to school because that's what I'm supposed to do, right? And it'd be interesting, because I was like, we talked about Noma-Collective. I don't know if there's a spot for him in terms of, like, as he doesn't have a digital nomad position yet. And I always thought it'd be cool to have, like, an apprenticeship where somebody could come on a trip and kind of partner up with somebody that's trusted, like, that's vetted, you know, and they could literally teach them what they're doing. Whether it's that's what he wants to do the rest of his life, doesn't matter. Yeah. Open their eyes to this opportunity. And that you don't have to go to school necessarily to get a degree. And you don't have to be tied to a cubicle. You don't have to be tied to any of that stuff that was like the old way of thinking. No offense yet. So we need to talk about that at some point. So I think that's another opportunity.
So I had thoughts about it more in terms of the local communities where we do business. So for example, the social impact campaign that we're doing in Belize, I got a grant from a NFT DAO called On-Chain Monkey. Shout out to On-Chain Monkey. They gave us about 4 ETH to essentially roll out a social impact program in Belize, and we do it's actually today. It's Thursday. Every Thursday we do activities, and every month we do a beach cleanup. And what I want to do is, you know, when you travel to these beautiful locations coming from developed world, you kind of take for granted how much we have on offer to ourselves. And I spent a lot of time in Belize. And so my thought process was having these mentorships come about to be able to offer open doorways for these kids in Belize or in Panama or in Kenya or whatever. But I think it goes both ways ultimately. So I think like basically giving any child the knowledge and the education to be able to make the decision that's best for their life is I think what is the next stage in terms of that type of internship and apprenticeship. Because you have an alumni network, you know, I'm sure you could have an intern if I had the right person who wanted to learn what you were doing. And I'm sure there's, you know, 50% of our alumni would feel the same way, right? And so again, it's like, how do we connect to all those people? How do we make sure that we know the wants and needs of all the alumni so that we can start to connect them and connect them for business, connect them for pleasure, but also connect them for mentorship as well?
I like that. I like both sides of the equation. And part of my passion is kind of transforming the kids who come up in a small town and don't really have the broader view perspective of the global side of things, and introduce them to concepts that are maybe never even imagined.
Yeah.
So that's cool. We are at the conclusion, but we have a couple quick fire questions.
Let's do it.
We use just me.
All right.
Okay, first off though, like you even mentioned that you're a power networker, connector. What's like a creative way that either you use or have been someone used on you to connect, get a foot in the door, get a call answered? And because part of this is also just like creative ways, whether it's sending like a written postcard, written like, you know, a book to somebody, and something you've experienced that you'd love to share with everyone to try.
Taking a step back and trying to understand that person is probably your number one idea. Like that's what I always do. It's like, what you don't want to try and sell like snow to an Eskimo. They always say it the other way around, but I think it's like it takes a little bit of a moment to go, okay, so what's motivating this person? Because I think like ultimately that's what gets people interested is, oh, okay, this person's, said something that resonates with me. So that's what I'd always do. I do it with if I'm trying to connect with someone on LinkedIn because I want to connect with them, I will look at what they're interested in and try and understand them a little bit and try and find some sort of connection between, me and him. I tend to do most of my networking, I kind of do trust the universe a little bit, and a lot of my networking comes from just face-to-face conversations where I'll talk to someone and be that charismatic person that I am. But I would say if you're trying to find, if you're trying to connect with someone, try and understand what motivates them. That's the number one goal. Because, if you don't want to, there's a risk of going to sell someone something and they don't want it, and then you look like an idiot. So it's just try and figure out what they want,
Okay. And tactically, what's something you could use? If you find somebody likes sport or an activity or a subject, what are you going to do tactically besides conversation with them? Is there something you could do? Connect with them a little bit better?
I think finding a common ground, some sort of activity. I mean, I know it's slightly different, but when I was thrown into the social impact program, the thing that allowed me to connect with all those kids that I have nothing in common with was football. That's something that allowed me to do that. I see common denominators like the arts, I think are a really easy way. I come from the arts, so be it a particular music artist that I like, or a particular museum that I like, or a particular type of, like an IPA or something like that. I try and I ask a lot of questions. Hey, what are you into? So oh, that's interesting. What do you do in your free time? Do you like this or do you like that? And I try and have enough of a basic knowledge as much as possible that I can then go, oh, that's cool. I know about that. And then I ask questions. I spend most of my time asking questions about, oh, that's cool. Tell me a bit more about that. I'm really interested because people like to talk. So we all want to talk, right? So it's that's the way and often that's the way you learn about something new as well. If someone's talking about something someone says they're into it's happened recently. I think it was Nabab who's with us right now, does pharmaceutical compliance.
Yeah.
And I was okay, I know nothing about that. You need to tell me more about that. What's going on there? And then it's oh, okay. And then he talked about this other thing, and I knew about that drug he was talking about, and then we had some common ground. And 20 minutes later, we're talking about So it's I think that's and then naturally that will lead you to other conversations. You just want to take people away from that thought process they have when they go into a networking event. You want to get them out of that and into the friend zone. And let's just try a date. No.
All right. Well, I know you're a busy guy. I know you got to head off and do some really cool stuff. What are you up to next?
Well, next I have promised the 8 to 12-year-olds that we're going to play FIFA for the next 2 hours.
Oh, that's what I'm doing.
I've gone from fixing golf carts to doing investing meetings to playing FIFA with a kid. I had a podcast on a bit else, and then I have a dinner because I have my sister-in-law who just arrived with her family. So we've got 2 more kids arriving to the party. So that's it. I'll super appreciate you doing this then. That's a big day. I have a couple more questions, and then we're gonna wrap up, and won't take any more 2 minutes. But listen up. So first off, pitch the Noma-Collective. How can people sign up? How can they bypass the vetting process? How can they get a good deal on this? Can we hook them up with a little show notes link in the bottom? Sure, yeah. So I guess I'll talk to the camera. Noma-Collective, Noma-Collective HQ is our Instagram. It's an amazing way to see kind of the visual aspect of what we do. Noma-Collective.com. We are a stepping stone for you. If you're unsure about your next stage, take a jump. It's only 3 weeks. You don't have to pack up your entire life. You can just give it a go. And I'll be more than happy to give you a really sizable discount, friends of the family now. And so, I think the last question I would say, or the last thing I would say is, if you're not sure, don't let that be the barrier. Ask questions. Our sales team are also here to help you through that process. It's a daunting thing. So if you're unsure, but you want to make a jump, just reach out.
We'll have a show notes link at the bottom and full, promotion for this. I want this to be part of the ecosystem of Partner Up Profits. I think it's a great synergy. Part of the things, you create a holistic approach to everything that people, marketing managers are going to need in their lives to be successful and happy. Yeah. It's a good balance.
Yep.
So now, last 10 questions. These are quick fire elevator pitch questions. So you got to be fast. Okay. So let's do it. First thing that pops in your mind, favorite food?
Pizza.
Oh, man, Nico says, I love pizza too. Best memory?
That I decided to go on a boat with two people I never met because they told me I was going to go to the best party of my life. I was on a beach in Koh Phangan. I rolled the dice and I ended up going to the best party of my life. I met 10 people that I spent the next 3 weeks with, and I'm still in contact with them today. So moral of the story is sometimes just get on the boat.
All right, you have another go around. What's a new story of life that you're writing?
What's a new story that I'm writing?
What would be a new Daniel story you rewrote for your entire life?
A new story. I like to reinvent myself a lot. One of the things I'm doing right now is actually, funny enough, what we were talking about before. Nootropics, nutrition, understanding what my body needs, not just the food I'm intaking, but everything I'm intaking. Also things I shouldn't be ingesting. That's the new part of me, because I was so focused on just work and life. And I think I the stress has led me to go, okay, what's going in is super important. So that's the new Daniel.
Okay. Best productivity app?
Don't think about it as a big one thing. Break it down into small, sizable bites. If you look at it as a whole, it will always be impossible.
I like that one. I know you don't want to retire, but I always ask everyone as a stress test on this podcast, do you want to retire? Yes or no? But if not, of course, what else are you doing in your 60s? You're not up at dance parties and all those late night things, but what else are you doing?
Well, I've already retired in terms of the traditional retirement because I don't do work. I'm not slogging. I love what I do. So it's not really a work. When I don't have to get out in the morning to do a bunch of meetings, I'm hoping 5 to 10 years. I would really like to be doing more consulting. I think that once I've proved what I'm doing, which it's a proving to myself, but I think if when Noma becomes what I want it to be, I think that the next stage will be focusing on just giving my knowledge to people who need it in the moment and then being able to mic drop and go on the beach.
All right. I like that. Kind of tied to that, but what else do you want to be remembered for?
I think that putting someone in contact with someone else so that they can make a relationship is so important. I think that that's your legacy. Is I want to go, oh yeah, that was Dan that put me together, and I love that. I know it sounds so cheesy, but I'm a people person. I love spending time with people. I love getting to know people. So I'm always like, oh, maybe you could connect with this person. So I don't really care if I'm remembered or not, but if I was remembered for something, it would be a positive impact on someone's life.
Me. I like that. And as an introvert, I try to pair myself up with extroverts that would connect me better than I can connect myself.
All right, cool, and good.
So what's one skill you recommend, thinking of even your son, Luchi, what's one skill you'd recommend developing early on in life to have maximum impact for the lifetime?
Learning multiple languages. I'm absolutely.
1 year from today, we're meeting back up. What are we celebrating? Okay, so that wrapped up part 1. Unfortunately, it got cut off and we didn't actually see it until we got back in Canada when it was too late to finish the in-person interview. That being said, we have part 2 already released where we go a little bit deeper with Daniel and the Noma-Collective experience and understand exactly how you can apply these type of meetups with the retreat format using Noma-Collective. So if you're a digital nomad or you're a team leader or you're a company owner and you want to start leveraging done-for-you programs or experiences like this, you should check it out. It's partnerupprofits.com/Noma, Noma. You can use the code PARTNERUP, which would give you $250 off of a single experience excursion. Or if you are a business, I've also secured a really good exclusive Friends of the Podcast discount. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but I'll tell you that it's limited to the first 5 groups or 5 businesses that take him up on this offer in the upcoming year. So for now, if you're interested, go to partnerupprofits.com/Noma. If not, go ahead and check out part 2. Again, we really dive deep in the necessity for retreats for your team, for just the ultimate experience and exponentially growing the culture and the bonding that can take place beyond just a remote setting that you're currently in. So I'll see you in the next episode. or I might see you at the next Noma-Collective excursion.